think the main thing for us to do is to concentrate on what will meet the new reality of customer demand, because they actually pay our salaries. And the customer is not demanding that we go back into a city office to do our job. It's the dinosaurs who've got a vested interest in the city properties that I think that are suggesting that, Leon.
Interesting.
Can I add something on that, though, Ruth, if I may? Because I think it depends a lot on the industry sector that one is in. I mean, I was reading recently, for example, JP Morgan Chase, Jim Damon was basically saying, look, I want people back to the office because it's a customer-facing role. And actually, they lost clients because the clients were not able to have that face-to-face meeting, let's say, with their advisors. And I do think it's I really hope that in these new worlds of work, we move away a little bit from this, it has to be this or it has to be that. And we start really embracing a coexistence of multiple models of work, depending on what makes more sense in a certain legislation, in a certain country, in a certain industry. There's certain jobs that by definition will not be able to be hybrid. There's certain people in different phases of their lives where hybrid is good, and some others where they say, you know what, I actually miss going to a physical space, which is different from the one I'm in at the moment. So I hear you, I get it. And I'm also, you know, I think everybody has embraced a different way of looking at how we work. I would just caution in terms of saying, you know, whether it's old dinosaurs or not, I don't know. I do think companies need to find and strike that right balance between what makes sense for the business, what makes sense for the employees, and also what is it that ultimately makes high-performing teams. I mean, Kath, you were talking about that, right? High-performance teams is something you're interested in, the encounter of economy and psychology. Well, it's also how well do teams actually work when they are remote or not. I think these are open questions. I just wanted to add my thoughts on that too. To embrace coexistence and flexibilities of looking at ways of working, as opposed to saying, well, from now on, it's going to be 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, or no days a week at the office.
I think I actually agree a lot, Paul, there. I mean, that article was a think tank which is primarily tasked with regeneration of the city centres in the UK towns. And obviously, office staff and football is key to that. So their axe to grind, their bias in that is fairly clear. I mean, Paola, I agree to a certain extent, but Ruth has some point in my view that, I mean, Goldman Sachs, David Solomon said that working from home was an aberration, was the word he actually used. And going forward, that wouldn't be the aberration that they would embrace. But something you said there, fundamentally, I believe there are three major interests in the company. They're the owners or shareholders, there are the employees, and then there are customers. And at the moment, hybrid working, I feel, is being pitched as a battle between all three sides of that triangle, when actually the outcomes for all three sides of the triangle don't need to be a battle. They're probably more of a negotiation. And in any negotiation, you meet in the middle or meet to one side. And that means neither will it be all virtual, nor will it be all in office, because there will be some give and take. And I think for anybody to call, we're all going to be in the office or all going to be virtual, it would be tantamount to impossible. There's not enough science behind virtual teams and how they work, despite the fact it's been going on for a decade now, maybe more. We haven't done enough studies on actually understanding the dynamics of what can be achieved and what can't be achieved. I'm a little bit sort of personally fed up with seeing you can't have creativity or innovation if you're a virtual team. I've seen teams that do that. I've seen teams that struggle virtually to have creativity and innovation. Until we understand better the dynamics that happen within a group virtually, as we do person to person, we can't make the definitive call of this is right or this is wrong.
I think also technology as well, because there's a lot more you can do now that you wouldn't have been able to do before. You know, technology is evolving all the time. It's getting easier. I mean, even from at the start of the lockdown, certainly in the UK, everyone started using Zoom. And Zoom is still popular, and I know the share price did very, very well during that period. But I do know that, like, now you've got, I mean, Teams is, I think, easier. And I don't know many people that now are using Zoom, unless it's for like a personal thing. And then they're still using things like WhatsApp or, you know, Messenger or other kind of platforms as well. And then the whole, you know, things like this as a platform. This was not a platform, I don't think, 3-4 years ago. It didn't exist. You couldn't do this before. Well, you might have been able to do, but not necessarily, you know, with this ease, really. So I think technology's definitely got a part of it. So can I sort of clarify what you were saying there, Cav? So in your eyes then, in terms of this article, the article you believe is basically a bit of propaganda for those, and that you don't believe that we will be back in the office 5 days a week from what you just said there?
I'll caveat with I haven't read the full report, but the summary on the BBC sounded very much like propaganda to try and keep the ancillary businesses in UK town centres working and generating revenue. I can't see an environment where everyone will be back to the office 5 days a week, but I can see some industries saying that that's the only thing we found that works and we're going to do it. But back to what Ruth said, I mean, financial services was one of the slowest moving on flexible working from home. And the excuse it gave for decades was it won't work. You can't do it. Compliance won't work and technology won't work. But we went to our houses for a year or so, and the lights stayed on and everything carried on working. That excuse is gone. We'll see what the next excuse that comes up is.
And I think, there's two sort of binary, really. People tend to look at it as either working from home or working in the office. And there's just a multitude of other options in between.
Exactly.
And that's where I say it's about looking at the unique makeup of the organisation and their customer base and thinking, what's going to work? How can we deal with those peaks and troughs in demand, and how can we do things differently? I mean, we spent decades and decades getting on the same motorways, getting on the same trains, getting on the same buses at the same time, going into the same cities. And then when we got into the office, what did we do? We emailed the person next to us. If the aliens landed, they'd say, that's ridiculous. What are you doing that for? And I think you're right, Cav. It was put into place by the people who wanted to build the railways and the suburbs, and they wanted to get these commuters coming in, putting the money into the economy. I mean, there have been some real winners and some real losers out of all this. We talked about Zoom. I said this was coming. Why on earth I didn't put my money where my mouth was and put me into Zoom? I've got no idea. But I look at companies like Pret and Costa and so on, and they've still not pivoted. They're still moaning about it. Now if I was the CEO of Pret or Costa, I'd be buying up fleets of ice cream vans with the little tunes going, and I'd be driving around delivering coffee and lunch to the people who are working in hubs and working remotely or working in the field or working on site. And I think we've just got to take these, what I call dinosaur mindsets, give them a bit of a kick, and think about doing something differently in this world.
Actually, there's a colleague of mine, Ruth, on this point. I think he came up with a brilliant solution. He's the HR head in Germany of a company I know pretty well, and what they decided to do was to give vouchers to their employees for these takeaway companies. So it's a good solution. Why? Because it keeps these other businesses in business. And it gives a solution to employees who perhaps may not particularly want to cook at home or may not have other options. And so, yes, it is possible to find solutions if we embrace, the differences. I think this crisis has forced a different way of thinking. The question is it going to morph back into the previous way of thinking, or is it solid enough, consolidated enough to say that the new world as we walk out of this tunnel is going to be really different the moment we go to the other side? I really think the jury's out, and maybe in the UK it's it's clearer what it's going to look like, but it is a very hot topic across countries, and there are some companies that are not that equipped as perhaps in the UK they may be when it comes to technology and stuff like that.